Imagine walking past your local kindergarten. You already know the vibe, right? It's just complete, unbridled chaos.
Oh, absolutely.
Kids screaming at the top of their lungs, plastic toys scattered everywhere like a brightly colored minefield. But today, something completely bizarre breaks the usual routine.
Yeah.
You look over the chain link fence, and there is a giant pile of what looked like weird plastic cafeteria trays sitting on the lawn.
Okay, that is weird.
And then you look up at the daycare building, and the construction workers are literally installing plants under the roof.
Right. I mean, seeing a crew essentially unrolling a lawn onto a flat, tarred surface definitely stops you in your tracks. You immediately wonder if they're trying to camouflage the building, or maybe someone just ordered the wrong roofing material and decided to go with it.
Which is pretty much the exact reaction we get in our source material today. We are taking a deep dive into a highly entertaining conversation between two observant students, Kesser and Steen.
Right. They're the ones who spot this.
Yeah, they're just on their way to the woods for a walk, minding their own business, when they pass by the local children's house and witness this exact bizarre construction project. So today we're going to explore what these two learned about these mysterious objects.
Which are called Sedum Mats, by the way.
Exactly. We want to find out if they are, actually as easy to install and manage as they look, and whether they genuinely do any good for the climate, or if it's just like greenwashing architecture.
And we are also going to see how a simple pile of plants on a roof managed to completely upend a teenager's neighborhood landscaping business model.
Yeah, that part is so funny.
It really is. But the intersection here between urban ecology, architectural engineering, and just, well, sheer convenience is fascinating. We are talking about taking the most sterile, hard surfaces in our cities and turning them into highly functional, living ecosystems.
Definitely. And Steen's reaction to this scene is genuinely priceless. He sees the workers in the pile of trays, and his immediate assumption is that they are just making a massive, muddy mess.
Right, because why else would there be dirt on a roof?
Exactly. But Kesser, who clearly pays a bit more attention in their nature and innovation classes, has to point out that they are actually putting a brand new roof on the daycare center.
And Steen's logical leap from there is fantastic. He thinks, wait, grass on the roof. Are they going to hoist goats up there to graze?
Uh-huh.
He's picturing those old traditional sod roofs you see in historical villages up in Norway or Iceland.
I mean, I'd pay good money to see a goat wrangled onto a kindergarten roof, honestly. But Kesser points out a highly practical application for a daycare setting. They aren't planting traditional grass.
Right, they're planting stonecrop.
Yeah, also known as sedum. And the primary reason for a school doing this is actually acoustic dampening.
Which is huge. Sound management is a massive issue in urban design because, a standard flat roof made of asphalt or metal, it acts essentially as an acoustic mirror.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, so when those kids are screaming on the playground, the sound waves hit that hard, flat surface and bounce directly back down into the neighborhood. It just amplifies the chaos.
Wow. So how does a plant fix that? Are the leaves, catching the sound?
It's a combination of surface disruption and mass. Sound waves bounce really cleanly off flat surfaces, but the uneven, chaotic surface of thousands of little succulent leaves...
Or it breaks it up.
Exactly. It scatters those sound waves in multiple directions, breaking up the echo. And furthermore, beneath those leaves is a layer of specialized soil and roots.
Right.
That substrate acts as a highly porous acoustic sponge. Instead of reflecting the acoustic energy, the air pockets within the soil absorb the vibration and dissipate it as microscopic amounts of heat.
That makes a lot of sense. You're basically putting studio soundproofing foam on top of the building, but, it's alive.
That's a great way to put it.
So Steen is still curious, right? He pulls out his phone and searches for Sedum Mat for roof. And what he discovers is that these aren't loose plants being meticulously potted one by one.
Right, nobody has time for that.
No, they are prefabricated carpets of succulent plants that are already grown into a thin layer of soil.
Yeah, and in the architectural world, these are classified as extensive roof systems. And that term is crucial.
Extensive.
Right. Extensive implies a very thin, lightweight layer of growing medium, usually only a few inches deep. This is the polar opposite of an intensive roof.
Intensive meaning like a full garden.
Exactly. A traditional rooftop garden that requires deep, heavy soil to support thick bushes, vegetables, or even trees.
Okay, let me make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. It sounds like a giant architectural chia pet. You just buy a roll of it, haul it up a ladder, and unroll it over your shingles.
I mean, that analogy holds up surprisingly well. The mats arrive pre-vegetated, but your skepticism about the survival of an architectural chia pet is totally warranted.
Yeah, because a roof is an incredibly hostile environment for a plant.
It really is.
It faces unrelenting, baking sun, high-velocity winds, and prolonged periods with zero rainfall. I mean, no one is climbing up there every evening with a watering can.
No, definitely not.
So how does a succulent actually thrive up there? If I forget to water the fern in my living room for 3 days, it completely gives up on life.
Yeah.
How does a roof-bound mat not just dry out, turn into dust, and blow away?
Well, the secret lies in the biological engineering of the sedum plant itself. Sedum is a genus of extremely hardy succulents. Nature engineered them specifically to survive on barren rocks, cliffsides, and in harsh, dry alpine environments.
Oh, wow.
So they don't need deep, nutrient-rich soil. They store almost all the water and nutrients they need directly inside their thick, fleshy leaves.
So they are basically walking around with their own internal water bottles.
Effectively, yes. And they also utilize a highly specialized type of photosynthesis.
How so?
Most plants open their pores, which are called stomata, during the day to take in carbon dioxide. But that causes them to lose massive amounts of water to evaporation under the hot sun.
Right, that makes sense.
Sedum, however, opens its stomata at night when it's cool. It stores the carbon dioxide to use for photosynthesis the next day, which minimizes water loss almost entirely.
That's incredibly smart.
It is. So by placing them on a baking hot, dry roof, you are essentially recreating the exact hostile environment they evolved to dominate.
I see. So the punishment is the point. They like it up there. But let's look at the economics of this.
Okay.
Why would anyone go through the effort of hauling hundreds of pounds of succulent carpets onto a roof instead of just nailing down standard asphalt shingles? Because asphalt is cheap, right? It works.
It does work.
So Steen is reading his phone, trying to figure this out, and Kesser chimes in with this massive realization.
Yeah.
He remembers a lecture from their professor, Professor Hendrick, regarding carbon dioxide.
Right, and the CO2 absorption rates of these low-lying plants completely redefine their value.
Yeah, Kesser reminds Steen that moss and these densely packed sedum plants actually absorb more CO2 from the local air than the trees in a typical forest.
It's amazing.
And the source material even notes you can paste these mats vertically on house walls. But, I read that claim about absorbing more CO2 than a forest, and frankly, my initial reaction was pure skepticism.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, a towering oak tree obviously holds more carbon than a 1-inch succulent.
Well, your skepticism is mathematically fair if we're comparing a single tree to a single succulent, but the advantage comes down to density and surface area within an urban context.
Okay, what do you mean?
A mature forest canopy has gaps, and you simply cannot plant a forest in the middle of a dense metropolis. What cities do have, however, are millions of square feet of flat, entirely unused roofs and blank vertical walls.
Oh, I see.
Because sedum mats contain hundreds of individual plants per square meter, covering those vast empty surfaces creates an incredibly dense, continuous layer of active carbon filtration.
So you're turning dead infrastructure into a giant, citywide air purifier.
Precisely.
That's wild, and the source goes far beyond just air quality. These mats are described as active climate defense mechanisms, particularly regarding stormwater.
Yes, urban flooding is one of the most pressing infrastructure crises we face right now.
For sure.
When a severe rainstorm hits a traditional neighborhood, the water immediately sheets off the hard roofs, rushes into the gutters, flows down the driveways, and just overwhelms the municipal storm drains all at once.
And that causes flash flooding.
Exactly. But a sedum mat intercepts that entire process. It acts as a highly absorbent sponge.
It drinks the storm before the storm hits the street.
It really does. It absorbs a massive percentage of the initial downpour, and then the water it cannot hold is released very slowly over several hours.
Oh, so it delays the runoff.
Right. It fundamentally delays the runoff, giving the municipal drainage systems time to process the volume without backing up.
The thermodynamic effects are wild, too.
Yeah.
By holding on to that moisture, the sedum drastically lowers the surface heating of the roof. The source mentions the urban heat island effect.
Right. Cities are typically several degrees hotter than the surrounding countryside. That's because dark asphalt roofs and roads absorb solar radiation all day and radiate it back into the air as pure heat.
It's miserable in August.
It is. But sedum roofs combat this in two ways. First, they change the albedo, or the reflectivity of the roof, so it absorbs less raw heat. And second, they utilize transpiration.
Plants sweat.
Essentially, yes. As the water stored in the sedum leaves evaporates into the air, it undergoes a phase change from liquid to gas. And this process actively pulls thermal energy out of the surrounding air, creating a localized evaporative cooling effect.
Wow.
Yeah, it cools the ambient air temperature around the building, which in turn significantly reduces the air conditioning demands for the rooms directly beneath that roof.
So you aren't just putting a hat on your house. You're installing an atmospheric sponge that manages floods and slashes your summer electricity bill.
It's a huge win-win.
And the biological benefits go even deeper. The source details a specific variation called biodiversity mats.
Those elevate the concept from basic architectural utility to genuine ecological restoration. Because they aren't just a monoculture of one sedum type.
Right, they contain at least 20 different types of flowering plants and herbs, grown together on a woven coconut fiber mat. The source states they arrive with about 95% plant coverage right off the truck.
That's a lot of coverage.
Yeah, and they start blooming in early spring and keep going all the way to late autumn. It sounds like a VIP lounge for the local insect population.
It really is, and that's so important because pollinators like bees and butterflies are experiencing catastrophic habitat loss. When we pave over meadows to build subdivisions, we obliterate the bottom of their food chain.
Right.
So introducing 20 species of native flowering plants back into that paved environment, elevated away from pesticides and foot traffic, creates vital way stations for these insects.
That's beautiful.
And the mats are incredibly dynamic, too. After installation, those 20 species will engage in a slow, natural competition. Yeah. The specific plants that thrive best in your particular neighborhood's microclimate, whether it gets more afternoon sun or heavy sea winds, will naturally propagate and spread.
So the mat essentially auto-customizes itself to the specific weather patterns of your house. It's brilliant.
It really is an elegant solution.
I am completely sold on stopping floods and feeding the bees. But putting myself in the shoes of a listener, the next major hurdle is logistics. Can a regular homeowner actually buy these and install them without causing catastrophic structural damage to their property?
That's the big question. The fear of ruining your biggest financial asset is a massive barrier to entry for green architecture.
So let's address the installation process first. Based on what Kesser and Steen are researching, putting this in a standard garden seems ridiculously straightforward.
No, it's very easy for a garden.
Yeah, you don't need a degree in horticulture or heavy machinery. You just prep the ground so it's relatively level and completely free of existing weeds. Then you roll the mats out tightly against each other, literally the exact same way you would lay down rolls of sod.
True, though you do need to thoroughly water them immediately upon installation to encourage the dormant roots to wake up and penetrate the soil below.
Right.
And there is also a mandatory quarantine period.
The 2-week ban. You have to keep off them entirely for at least 14 days so the root systems can establish a firm grip. If you start walking on them immediately, the mats will shift, tear, and fail to bond with the earth.
Exactly. We should also address the aesthetic concerns, too. Homeowners often worry that a green roof will just look like a messy, unkempt patch of weeds.
Right, but the horticultural industry has bred immense visual variety into these products. The Latin names in the source sound like something out of a fantasy novel.
They really do.
You can order Sedum Spirium Dragon's Blood, but, I mean, do I really care about the Latin names? I just want to know what it looks like from the driveway.
Well, the visual impact is significant. Dragon's blood provides dramatic, deep crimson leaves, which architects actually love for modern high-contrast building designs. Alternatively, Sedum album coral carpet provides a very vibrant, lush green texture. Creates those classic rosette-shaped succulents for a highly textured, varied appearance.
What happens when November hits, though? The source mentions an evergreen option called Sedum rupestre angelina.
Oh, that's a great one.
It stays alive during the freeze, but it actually shifts from green to a stunning golden-orange color throughout the winter months. It acts like it has biological antifreeze.
It basically does. The cellular structure of these specific sedums prevents the water inside their leaves from crystallizing and bursting the cell walls during a hard freeze.
That is wild.
Yeah, they might look slightly shriveled or dormant in January, but the moment the spring sun hits them, they rehydrate and fluoresce with vibrant color.
Okay, that answers the winter question, but I have to push back heavily on the structural logistics here.
Go for it.
We called these things an atmospheric sponge earlier. If I roll out several hundred square feet of dense plant matter and soil onto my roof, and its literal job is to suck up and hold massive amounts of stormwater,
Yeah.
doesn't that become horrifyingly heavy Am I going to accidentally cave in my own living room ceiling?
It's a very valid concern. Structural load capacity is the single most critical factor in this entire discussion, and the source provides the exact metrics you need to consider.
Okay, let's hear the numbers.
A completely dry sedum mat weighs roughly 15 to 20 kilograms per square meter.
That is heavy, but a sturdy roof can handle it.
True. The danger arises during a torrential downpour. When that biological sponge becomes fully waterlogged, the weight jumps to 20 to 25 kilograms per square meter.
Wow. Putting a waterlogged load like that on a flimsy, unreinforced carport sounds like a recipe for a structural collapse.
It absolutely is. Your underlying roof structure must be inspected and certified by an engineer to handle that maximum wet weight.
Good to know.
Furthermore, there is the issue of waterproofing. You cannot just put wet dirt on bare wood or standard shingles. You need a specialized, root-resistant waterproof membrane to ensure the moisture and roots don't slowly rot the structural timber over the years.
The source also mentions a hard limit on the slope. For the biodiversity mats specifically, they can only be installed on roofs with a maximum incline of 10 degrees.
Right, because gravity is an unrelenting force. If you put a 25-kilogram wet sponge on a steeply pitched roof, the sheer downward force will eventually cause the entire mat to tear free and slide off the building, taking your gutters with it.
Yikes. Okay, what about interacting with it on the ground? If I replace my lawn with this dragon's blood variety, am I going to destroy it every time I walk out to the garden shed to grab a tool?
Sadly, yes. The thick, fleshy leaves that make sedum so drought-resistant also make it incredibly fragile to crush damage.
Oh, man.
The leaves store water like tiny balloons. If you step on them, they burst. While the plants can survive an occasional misplaced footstep, establishing a regular walking path across a sedum mat will quickly kill it.
So no walking on it.
Right. The source strongly mandates the installation of stepping stones or integrated wooden walkways if you plan to use this as a ground cover in any area that requires human traffic.
So it is strictly a look but don't stomp landscaping solution.
Very much so.
Okay, so we have established that this product is visually striking, structurally heavy, but manageable with planning, survives freezing temperatures, and practically takes care of itself. No weekly mowing, no chemical fertilizers, almost zero watering.
Sounds perfect.
Yes, but this specific no-maintenance characteristic triggers a phenomenal miniature existential crisis for our entrepreneurial student, Steen.
Yes. The narrative introduces a very human economic panic to the ecological discussion.
It's so good. Steen is staring at these incredible self-sustaining mats on the daycare roof, and he just lets out this massive dramatic sigh of defeat. He realizes that if this architectural trend catches on, and everyone in his neighborhood covers their lawns and carports in these sedum mats, his future income from his summer lawn mowing hustle is completely doomed.
He just sees his entire customer base vanishing under a blanket of self-sufficient succulents.
Exactly. He's like, if they don't need to be mowed, Kesser, I'm out of a job.
Poor Steen.
But Kesser, who clearly possesses the mind of an entrepreneur, refuses to accept defeat. He immediately suggests they pivot the entire business model. Instead of fighting the trend, they should offer a premium service to help the neighbors procure, carry, and install these heavy mats onto their carports.
Which is smart. Pivoting from maintenance to installation is a solid business strategy. However, it reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what the landscaping industry means when they say low maintenance.
Wait, how do you mean?
Low maintenance is absolutely not synonymous with zero maintenance.
Oh, right.
The source carefully categorizes green roofs into 3 tiers of care. The standard mats, used mostly on flat, inaccessible surfaces, require very little. The extensive mats are robust but still need someone to occasionally clear away autumn leaves or detritus that might block sunlight.
Got it.
And the intensive roofs, the ones with deep soil and tall grasses, require traditional, regular gardening work.
Sure, but even clearing dead leaves isn't going to provide a steady, reliable weekly paycheck for a teenager trying to save up for a car.
No, it wouldn't. But Steen experiences a sudden eureka moment as he continues reading the fine print on his phone, specifically regarding those complex biodiversity mats we discussed earlier.
The punchline to this panic is fantastic. Steen reads the documentation and realizes that the biodiversity mats actually require a highly specific, mandated maintenance schedule to survive.
Right. Because the biodiversity mix contains taller flowering herbs and non-succulent plants, It creates a much more volatile micro-ecosystem.
So it can get out of balance.
Exactly. If left completely unattended, the fastest-growing plants will overshadow the smaller ones, or aggressive invasive weeds blown in by the wind will take root and choke out the intended flora.
And the instructions dictate that you must actively weed the mat at least twice a year. And here is the absolute golden ticket for Steen.
Mm.
Every single September, the homeowner is required to cut the entire vegetation layer down to a highly specific height of 5 to 7.5 centimeters.
And that height measurement is scientifically critical.
Why is it so specific?
If you cut it shorter than 5 centimeters, you risk damaging the vital crown of the plants, severely stunting their ability to survive the impending winter frost.
Oh, that makes sense.
But if you leave it taller than 7.5 centimeters, the dead, woody stems will block sunlight from reaching the low-lying sedum layers when spring arrives.
Wow, it's a very delicate balance. And the physical labor doesn't stop with the cutting. You cannot just use a mulching mower and leave the clippings to decompose on the roof.
No, absolutely not.
The source explicitly states you must physically rake up and completely remove all the trimmings within 4 days.
The removal of the clippings is a fascinating biological necessity, actually. If you leave a thick layer of cut green vegetation on the roof, it will rapidly decompose.
And isn't that good? Doesn't it make fertilizer?
That's the problem. As it rots, it acts as an intense organic fertilizer, dumping massive amounts of nitrogen back into the thin layer of soil.
But don't plants love nitrogen?
Most common weeds love nitrogen. Sedum, however, evolved to thrive in nutrient-poor, harsh soil.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. If you artificially spike the nitrogen levels by leaving the clippings to rot, you ruin the competitive advantage of the sedum. You essentially roll out the red carpet for aggressive, nitrogen-loving weeds to invade the roof and decimate the succulents.
Wow.
Furthermore, the source notes that sometimes you even have to perform an additional secondary trimming in late June just to manage the growth rates and help the delicate flowering plants establish their territory against the more aggressive herbs.
So Steen reads all of these complex, labor-intensive requirements, and he just starts laughing in relief.
Yeah.
He realizes his lawn mowing business isn't dead. It has simply evolved into a highly specialized, premium ecological maintenance service.
He's back in business.
He looks at Kesser and says, so actually a biodiversity mat needs to be looked after. We just have to make sure to heavily promote that specific type to all the neighbors over the standard ones.
He turns a genuine ecological win planting diverse flora to save the local pollinator network into a brilliant, entirely self-serving business strategy.
It's hilarious.
It really is a perfect demonstration of how human ingenuity, basic economic incentives, and robust environmentalism can align perfectly. Steen gets to run a profitable, specialized maintenance business. The neighborhood gets beautiful, flood-resistant architecture, and the local bee population gets a continuous, thriving food source.
Bringing this all together, Kesser and Steen's detour past the kindergarten provides a brilliant blueprint for modern living.
It really does.
We have learned that Sedum Mats are essentially an ingenious architectural hack. They offer a visually stunning method to create a climate-resilient ecosystem right on top of our existing infrastructure.
And they do so much more than just look pretty.
Right. They scatter and absorb chaotic urban noise. They act as massive thermodynamic sponges that manage heavy stormwater to prevent flash flooding. They utilize transpiration to cool our neighborhoods. They scrub massive amounts of carbon dioxide from the air.
And if you opt for the biodiversity mix, they physically rebuild the decimated food web for our pollinators.
Exactly. But we also learned the vital engineering realities. They add tremendous weight to a structure, particularly when waterlogged.
Yes, that's crucial to remember.
They require a specialized waterproof membrane. They cannot be placed on steep inclines without sliding off. Their leaves will burst if you walk on them regularly. And despite the low-maintenance marketing, they still require a dedicated, knowledgeable teenager to show up every September to give them a scientifically precise haircut.
It is urban adaptation at its absolute finest.
It really is.
And the implications of this technology offer something profound to consider. For centuries, we have designed our homes, our cities, and our infrastructure to completely repel the natural world.
We really have.
We seal our living spaces in plastic wrap. We pave our surroundings with impermeable asphalt. And we cap our buildings with dead, heat-absorbing concrete. We treat nature as an adversary that must be kept entirely outside the perimeter of our civilization.
We treat our cities like those sterile plastic trays sitting on the daycare lawn.
We do. But if architectural science now allows our buildings to literally wear living, breathing ecosystems, plants that actively repair the local atmosphere, manage the rain, and cool the ambient temperature, why are we still blanketing our cities in dead, sterile surfaces?
That's a great question.
Perhaps it is time we fundamentally rethink the actual biological purpose of what a roof is supposed to be.
Moving from a dead rain shield to an active, living ecosystem. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been great.
The next time you walk past a bustling construction site or look out a high-rise window over a sprawling sea of flat gray roofs,